welcome. My name's Toby. I've been a member of the NORAC committee since the beginning, and it's certainly been an interesting journey, but I do feel we make progress. And we were discussing, what we could put into the AGM this year, and obviously we talk about technical a lot at NORAC. We love technical, just as I'm sure you guys do. But we wanted today to maybe look a bit beyond the technical and actually look at some other aspects of asbestos consultancy and the such like. So what I'm going to talk about today is it's kind of in two halves of presentation. We're going to look at employee engagement, so actually how we can get our staff working for us, working better, being happier, especially post-COVID. And then we're going to have a little bit of a look at behaviour management and how we can empower our staff to feel more confident to work in the workplace and deal with those difficult situations that, funnily enough, we do come across in the world of asbestos. So let's make a start. So your greatest asset, you often hear the phrase, your greatest asset is your staff, your employees. And I'm sure we can all sit here and say all our staff look as wonderful as these people, enthusiastic, keen, good to go. Or are they your biggest pain in the bottom? I've certainly met some people in our industry who have not the politest thing to say about many of their staff. But wherever you sit, unfortunately, they matter, okay? And I'm presuming most of us here at the conference do hold a relatively senior position in your organisation, and you have responsibilities towards your staff. You may be their direct boss, you may be on the technical side, but staff matter, employees matter. So what we can look at is how we can engage them and how we can get them working better for us. Okay, so obviously you may have noticed there's been a pandemic over the last 18 months, and it's, as well as the world changing, it's also brought to the forefront problems that were probably actually there all the time, with people who were struggling with life, people who were struggling with work, and maybe it's just exacerbated some of those problems as well as creating some of the problems. But we're all well aware of this and what's been going on. I mean, the impacts of COVID, obviously there's the risk of the loss of business, there's people going on furlough, there's the change, a lot of people now work at home, there's the mental health, physical health side of things, the stress that comes with it, job security, isolation, all of these build up. And obviously in the presentation coming up with Pam later, she'll be looking at more detail about how actually these impacts have affected people. But what we're looking at is we're almost in a sort of post-COVID world, we're getting there, is how can we get our staff back on board? How can we get them working for us to how we would like them to work for us? So what we're looking at is engagement or staff disengagement. Okay, so what does disengagement look like? Well, I think we can probably pick that out ourselves, can't we? We can see if staff are disengaged. It's really those who really don't want to be there, don't want to do the work, or are just cruising along and the such like. But who is in your boat? And we have to kind of look at things like what engagement means and disengagement means. And if you roughly look at a business, actually a very small number of your staff are highly engaged, and you probably know who these staff are. These are the ones who really go for it. They are on board, they're with the company, they do everything, they go above and beyond, and they really want to do that. But there's probably actually a very small number. The vast majority of your staff will be disengaged. Now, that doesn't mean that they are not good employees. It just means they probably turn up to work and they do their job, and that's fine. And in many ways, that can be a good thing. We do, to a certain extent, need people who just want to turn up, come to work, do their job and go home. But obviously, there's always room for more engagement. And then we have the highly disengaged. And again, you may well be able to identify these people in your business. You may not be able to, but these are the people who really don't want to be there. They don't want to engage in the company ethos, and you really wonder why they turn up every day. Okay. So actually, if we look at our staff, 7 out of 10 employees are either disengaged or actively disengaged. Now, actively disengaged means wanting to leave. They don't want to be with the business. Now, actually, you could argue that's fine, because if they don't want to be there, move on. I mean, if you're going to take an actively disengaged employee and try and move them to the other end of the scale where they are actively engaged, that there's a lot of work to be done there. Okay, what we're looking at is the middle group, the disengaged. So they are your normal people. We're going to look at a moment how we can start engaging them and bringing them more on board. But what we also have to remember is it's not just about engagement. We have to balance that with ability. So you may have staff who are in the middle, they're disengaged, but it doesn't mean they don't have ability. They might be extraordinarily good at their job. So those are the ones you really want to move that engagement up the scale, because they're good at their job. They just may not be too fussed about the fact that they work for you. You know, wherever they worked, they would be good at their job. What we need to do is getting them being good at their job for you as a business, because they want to work for you as a business. And then, as we say, we've got the actively disengaged who don't want to be with you. But then when we mix this with ability, you might have actively engaged people, you know, the real go-getters, but they might not be very good at their job. Now, this could be a bit of a problem. So you've got someone who's actively engaged, real company person, but they're not great at their job. Now, these can be tricky people to manage, because they're not going anywhere. They love working for you, but they're not that good at their job. But we can help them, can't we? Because they're actively engaged, those are the people you can take and say, right, well, let's give you some more training. Let's change your role slightly. Let's mold you into what you can do for us. Because you've got the engagement, which is brilliant. Let's get you doing what you're doing. And then in the disengaged group, we can take the people who are good at their job, and we can try and bring them more into that business ethos of how you actually want to run your business. Okay. So what are the benefits of good engagement? Well, I think it's fairly obvious, really. If you've got staff who are engaged and they want to work for your business because they like working there, you will be more productive. You will get higher sales. You will bring more business in. You will get less sick leave. Because people like coming to work, they're less likely to take sick days. And then it says they're higher share price, but obviously the value of the company can obviously increase. And also that means employees will be more comfortable with change. If they're really going with the company and the company ethos, they won't mind when things change and things develop, because they will feel engaged with that. And also greater feedback, because if they're engaged, they will hopefully talk to you and you will talk to them, and we can all come together to create a better business. And then you get that proactive approach to overcoming challenges. Now, we all work in the asbestos industry. Funnily enough, we have a lot of challenges in what we do. But what we want is, that's fine. We know asbestos is a challenging industry to work in. We know we have those challenges to face. But if you've got staff who actively want to overcome those challenges and work with you, that's fantastic. So we need to look at this engagement. Okay, so employees who feel their voices are heard are much more likely to feel empowered and perform their best work. Okay, so we bandy this word around a lot, communication, but it is so important to communicate with your staff. And rather than just seeing them, you know, as people who come to work, do their job and go away again, you've got to get that level of communication going, where your staff feel actively involved, whether that's through company emails, group emails, regular meetings with managers. However you're going to do that, communication, as ever, is key. Because then you get your higher employee productivity with higher rated engagement. And certainly we know with analysts and surveyors, those guys have got to be engaged. A disengaged surveyor is a huge liability to your business. We know that. But if we've got a surveyor who is engaged and keen, they could be doing really amazing work. Higher employee engagement in organisations, strong positive cultures. And goodness, that's so important. I mean, obviously, we talk about health and safety culture within a business. Well, it's the same thing. It's all about engagement. So we have consultation with employees, health and safety representatives, but also that moves into a quality culture. And that's something you have to work on very hard. And as you see, you can't just have your isolated quality manager doing his quality system and everyone doing their own thing. We know that, but we've got to get your staff into that quality culture where quality matters. It's not just something that gets in the way of their job. Okay, and then as we said before, less sickness, absence, because if people like coming to work, they will come to work. So that there are so many benefits from engaging with your staff. Okay, so how are we going to drive this? I mean, how do we engage with your staff? As I said before, talk to your people. Communication is the key to all this. Engage with them. Learn more about their day-to-day life, their challenges, their needs, their goals. It's getting to know people as individuals. If you're in a very large organisation, I know that can be difficult, but we can do that in stages. So we're always talking to the line level above. So there's that line of communication. So you actually get to know who works for you. Treat them as humans, dare I say. But if you can get people to learn who they are on their personal level. And take time to listen to the feedback, acknowledge that you've heard their views. I'm sure in all our businesses we have the person, oh, he's always moaning. Well, rather than just saying he's always moaning, why don't you actively engage with them? Because if someone's moaning, normally it's because they do actually have something that's relevant to say. They're just probably not very good at putting it across. So the best thing to do is actually to approach that individual, grab them and say, look, let's have a talk about this. What is the problem? And start working with them. And it's amazing how moaning suddenly turns into constructive criticism, which turns into change, which turns into engagement. Okay. And then also we can discuss what actions you will take away as a result of the feedback and act upon them. Because if you listen to your staff and then just put them back in their box, they're not going to engage. It's got to be a two-way street. And then you can update them. So if people suggest that there's a better way of running the business, you say you're right, do it, and then go back and tell all your staff that you've done it. And then you're starting to close the circle of that communication. Okay, so what can we focus on? Well, there's kind of three areas. So there's leadership, okay? So if you're in a senior position in the company, what is your company trying to achieve? What is your company vision? Okay, because if you can communicate to your staff what your company vision is, and you can engage your staff and they understand, they will feel past that vision and then they're going to start to engage more with the business. Okay, so we really need that strong leadership, but a strong indication of what the company means. What is its ethos? And then secondly, what's really important is employees, direct managers. That's where it is most important. Excuse me, getting over a cold. Is direct manager and employee communication is absolutely key to this. And it's really important that line managers are regularly communicating with their staff. They're not just speaking to them when there's a problem. They're not just speaking to them when there's an issue, that they are regularly communicating them. They may go and visit them on site, not to do an audit, just to visit them, spend some time with them. And it's amazing how you will start to get that engagement and that connection if we can start spending time with their direct managers. And then the third area is personal growth. So what do your employees feel about growth? How are they going to grow and help your business? Okay. Now, I think probably for a lot of you, small to medium enterprises in the asbestos area, it's difficult to rapidly progress up through. You know, as with any organisation, you can't have all chiefs and the such like. So, but what you can look at is how can you personally grow your staff? Can you give them diversification, training, different roles within the business, and make them feel that you are engaging them, and then they will engage with you. Okay. So where to start? Great place to start is a simple employee survey. Okay, good starting point. Microsoft Forms is fantastic because you can just fill it out Microsoft, send it out, comes back, and it gives you data. It will give you pie charts and bar graphs. Just 10 to 15 questions, keep it very simple. And as I say, Pam and Richard, who in the next presentation, they're actually going to be looking in more detail about questionnaires and what you can actually ask of your staff. So I won't talk about too much of that now, but it's just important to make the questions clear, avoid double negatives and that sort of thing. Clear, simple questions so you get clear, simple answers. Encourage participation and obviously put a time limit on for those responses. So it's a clear window. Please fill this out and bring it back in. Okay, and then just very quickly, so the four main enablers to engagement: strategic narrative. So what is your company doing? If you know what your company ethos is and you can communicate that to your staff, they will be engaged. Engage in your managers, so line managers, they have to engage in engagement as well. They have to talk to their staff and the such like. Give your employees a voice, so they obviously need a platform and communication channels. And lastly, organizational integrity. You know, do what you say you're going to do. If you're going to look after your staff, do it and prove it. If you're just going to BS your staff, that is a road to disengagement. Okay. Now, I know not all of these are easy in reality. It's very easy to sit here, but it's small steps. And starting with that questionnaire can actually start to give you a picture of engagement within your business. And then you can start to look at how you're going to move on to these steps. Okay, so a few helpful tips. Surveys are not the start and end point of feedback. They are your starting point. Share actions and answers. So, you know, feedback what the questionnaire was and what you're going to do with it. Even if you get negative answers, then why? Why is it a negative answer? And then we can start to engage. Be open and honest, be authentic. You know, again, if you BS your staff, that's on a poor road. And the other one, remember, chit chat is work. It's difficult in our industry. A lot of people are out and about all the time. Post-COVID, we've lost that office environment, but actually that day-to-day, having a bit of a natter, having a bit of a gossip is a huge step to engagement, because if you've got people talking to each other, even if it's just idle chit chat, that actually all helps. Okay, so you need to encourage all of that. So there we go. Okay, that's first half of the presentation. Thank you for your comments. All good stuff. Right. Ah, yes, project manager. Yes, if only everyone could be a project manager. Thank you, Gary. I think we all recognise that one. Okay, ready to move on to part two? Have I got time, Colette?
Yeah, Toby, I was just going to say, I found that really, really interesting, really engaging. I'm getting a bit of feedback. I don't know if everybody else is or not, but I mean, one of the comments was about Marcus has put something in about, you know, some companies won't necessarily want to, you know, provide additional training or enhance because the person might just leave, go somewhere else for more money. And I think we know at the moment, you know, in the industry, money is a bit of a factor. There seem to be lots of, you know, these large frameworks that drive, you know, the amounts down that people can charge for services, whereas sort of salaries seem to be going up. So, you know, is there an argument around that? You know, maybe you don't want to train them anymore.
Well, I mean, it's two sides of the coin, though, isn't it? Because if you engage your staff into your company ethos, they won't want to leap just for another couple of grand potentially, because if they can see there is a path with your business and you engage with them, and again, that's another argument for engagement, is actually if you get that employee actively engaged, they're not going to move on constantly looking for that pot of gold. So yeah, hopefully, I mean, you can never allow for everything, but yeah, if you can do engagement, I do believe we can help counteract that.